Hey there, Mr. Strings. We're so pleased to clip your wings. Alright. Alright, so for right now, we're gonna do another Shadow of the Arcana. This one's the Shadow of the Hermit Arcana. Ooh, it's the false guide, which is a false tutorial fairy. Oh no, it's a fake! It's a fake! It's airy! It's airy! It's airy! Alright, not gonna lie, this is heavily inspired by Harry, okay. Anyway. This being is one that pretends to be a great ancestor of all tutorial fairies under the guise known as NAVI. NAVI. Yeah, Navi. Its true appearance is that of a sickly green, faceless, childlike humanoid whose wings show its true face, with the horrors within as they are shown as an ever-changing, expressive humanoid face of a woman with a mole on her face that can distort from time to time to a rage-fueled Oni that when defied or questioned just a bit too much. In the celestial world, it was once considered the wisest among beings. However, it was clouded with pride towards the goddess of creation's new creation, was offended at the idea that they would need to learn, to grow, to adapt, and to have people to help them learn right from wrong, and how to use their power responsibly, which the false guide took silent offense to, and quietly, secretly side with the Muse of Darkness, because the Box of Evils incident would mean, oh yes, I will guide and teach them towards their ruin. In Arachne's timeline, it had been responsible for many of the schemes and weapons made by the traitors who ruled over Earth-Eye with an iron fist and even manipulated many of its heroes, its wise men, its knights, its great men towards the darkness as part of its schemes. So basically, it was airy. This being appeared in countless ages, such as one such example where it appeared in the human world and from a ray of light in a hopeless world during the three-sided war and had led one that was a small towner who had a handsome and beloved face to in his village and seen as a hero candidate on a journey to the church protagonist and to defeat the Dark Lord and end the legacy that haunted the false guide and its cohorts across realities for good. The contest was to pull out a sword, a legendary holy blade modified after an ancient weapon the traders made back in the Age of the Gods, and had been modified and spread. That had since been modified and spread the idea that it's a hero's holy blade that was part of a holy set of armor that was awarded to the hero following the pulling of the sword, which they secretly mass-produced and froze to make heroes that when the armor was put on, it distorts and warps their realities. Then warps the reality of those who put it on, and this armor, it distorts their vision of reality. Then this armor was spread across realities, and many of Dark Lord's candidates were all too familiar with this, especially the architect who rescued his then future wife from the armor's control, which made her and many others who were tricked into or forced or manipulated into in various ways of putting it on to see the world via RPG logic. Yeah, basically this cursed armor works a lot like, the armor in, have you guys ever played Moon, the anti-RPG? Yeah, basically it's a cursed set of armor that, distorts people's, perception of reality, as well as basically puts them under mind control and basically makes them see the world, as an RPG. With random encounters and all that. Basically to manipulate them into weapons of war by basically the Ascended, basically. In fact, the false guide under the guise of a tutorial fairy and pretending to be the true Winged Sage. Yeah, the Winged Sage is somebody else, by the way. They're an actual tutorial fairy. Not like this faker here. Faker. Not like this faker who's obviously not a true, tutorial fairy. And led the hero that she had chosen to slay a dead monster queen who was married to a mortal in a land where monsters had fought long for their rights under protagonism. Since protagonism considered monsters and other beings part of tulpomancy through the lies of the traitors to be demonic entities rather than thought forms of their own imagination and will given flesh through tulpomancy and thus spread the idea that they deserve to be purged, which the killing of said queen and long years of extremism and oppression of tulpa descendants would lead to the war, which actually is an important event that leads into Indumati's timeline. Because that's basically, why Lumina Night got created, and basically, she kind of, was born during the post-war era. Shortly after that. That would eventually birth the origin of Lumina Night herself. Yeah, that's just what I said. The goal of that one hero's journey, however, was to acquire the crown of wishes, which could grant any three wishes, which had been discovered by a tyrant who had recently died and lost access to the Phoenix Tear, so to Phoebe, the daughter of the Lord Phoenix, an immortal woman escaping a prison. Yeah, Phoebe is another character in the lore. She's basically a hybrid of, she's basically a hybrid of the elemental Lord of Light that, is basically the Phoenix and, a human woman. Yeah, the Lord of Phoenix, saved the mortal woman, back when she was basically a slave. And, I married her. He, disrupted her while she was on, disrupted, a sale of her and, basically rescued her, and, killed a bunch of slavers. And took her as his bride. You gotta understand, Celestials really don't like slavery, unless they're part of the Ascendant, of course. Anyway. Alright, the full sky appeared in many other forms, spread from world to distant world, then from world to distant worlds to manipulate the remaining planets, the killer clowns and the boogeyman into fighting over the crown, killing each other, racing the world with fire and sword to make the crown easy to snatch from under the chaos while planning to dispose of its brainwashed hero and take it for itself to bring about the end of humanity and their creations. But the union of Lord Phoenix and his lover Phoebe would stop them and destroy the crown. That's right, Phoebe destroyed the crown. But the union. Alright, now wait. Angry and embittered at this defeat, it would go on to become the guide of protagonism under Father Dull, a thing it had done in times past, but now went into full investment in, and even was successful in unsealing the chaos that the Muse of Darkness's designs caused to the human psyche's collective unconscious that had been in the wizard book that had been sealed in the Wizard Gray's Book of Monsters, to unleash the hordes of humanity that had kept suppressed and then spoken into the world via Lumina Knight's hand. Oh, this is where the Book of Monsters comes in. However, the successor of the Dark Lord, which had tried to, stay one step ahead of for so long and finally caught up with her, and wore a face he didn't suspect, Indumati Evening Night. It finally defeated it and put an end to its deception with a piercing ray of truth that Indumati Evening Night shone with the trust and guidance of her allies, including the other successors, Grey Spirit, Phoebe, and Dreams. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Indumati did team up with Phoebe, yeah. Isn't that wonderful? Alright, now, let's see who's on so we can rate them. Ooh. Well, actually, I know just I just know the person to rate, alright? Let's rate Ryu Una _. Alright, now, the false guide is over, yeah. Yeah, the false guide is definitely inspired by Eri. You guys ever played Bravely Default? Yeah, it's kind of a spoiler on the twist of Bravely Default, though. Let's just say that Eri is a type of character that, a lot of other series, tried to pull off, but, not quite as good. Moonbat swooping in to give you rabies and your baby's rabies. Also not cute. See you later, guy. Bye.